Forged with a passion for steel and an iron-like eye for talent. This is the Recruiter of Steel podcast. Blast right in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Recruiter of Steel podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rossi, and today I am delighted to be joined by Denise Rogers, someone with over 30 years experience in the industry, specifically selling for a very well-known and top-rated service center. So Denise, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Of course, absolutely. It's a pleasure. So Denise, I ask this to everybody. I'm going to ask it to you. How did you get your start in steel?
Well, actually, I started working for O'Neill 33 years ago and came in an entry-level position, left a law office. I was an administrative assistant working in a law office and had my first child and decided that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and quickly realized after about 16 months that it was fun, but that was not for me. So I just wanted to get a job where I could work 8 to 5 and go home and not, take work home with me. So I did that for a while and then just progressed, worked in the warehouse part-time doing the initiatives to become ISO certified. And once we wrote the manuals and did all that, then I started assisting the sales team, the inside sales team, and then was promoted to inside sales, did that for about 12 years and been on the outside since then. So something new every day.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Okay. So tell us a little bit about O'Neill specifically, right? So what are you selling? What have you seen in the market over your last 30 years? Shed a little bit of light on that if you can.
So for O'Neill, when I work for O'Neill Steel, and there's also the ONI companies. So O'Neill has grown through acquisition, but my entire 33-year career has been with O'Neill Steel. So now we have, we're the largest privately held service center, but we have O'Neill Manufacturing, O'Neill Steel, and then the performance metals companies that make up all of O'Neill's ONI. So I have always worked for O'Neill Steel because I like knowing I sell all metals. Like O'Neill Steel is a full line service center. We sell stainless aluminum, hot roll, cold roll. We sell bar product, plate product, sheet product, tubing. But we also sell stainless and aluminum. Really, the only thing that we don't sell is tool steel and brass. We don't really get into that, but I like being able to sell all types of metals. And then we also do first and second stage processing. We don't do any welding. We don't do anything like that, but tube lasers, flat lasers, saws, some press brake work. So it's just learning and being exposed to so many different things. My customer base is so diverse that anytime there's a downturn in any segment of the market, or it's easier for me being at a full line service center part of O'Neill Steel than because you have that diversity. So transportation's down, a lot of times food equipment is up. So
Sure. No, I think that's great, especially first getting your foot into the door when you did. Joining a full line service center like that, where you're selling multiple products is big. A lot of the candidates that I speak with the market, especially when they operate with smaller service centers, they're very product focused, right? It's specifically carbon flat roll or specifically aluminum flat roll or specifically stainless, right? And it's hard to make those transitions if you're ever looking to maybe move to a different role or something like that, because different products have different applications and different customer bases. So it's hard to make that transition at times. But with O'Neill and with your background, you've kind of got a whole lay of the land, and it's given you a lot of great experience over these last 30 years. One thing I want to ask is you were at the law office, you moved to inside sales at O'Neill. How did O'Neill find you, or did you find O'Neill?
Oh, dating myself. I'm dating myself, Tyler. I saw an ad in the paper, in the newspaper, and like I said, I was looking for a job that was just a go to work every day
Sure.
and go home and be finished. So 401k, paid vacation, company pension, all of the things. And so I, I I scheduled an interview and my husband came home and I was like, well, I I have an interview tomorrow. And I tell him where it is. And he's like, oh, you can't go there. You can't work there. It's a horrible part of town.
Oh,
So I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you can't work there. So I canceled. And then like a month later, it was back.
mm,
So I guess somebody had taken the job and then ended up
didn't work out or
not
something.
staying for whatever reason. So I was like, well, I'm just not going to tell him because it's just back on here. 401k, starting out with 2 weeks vacation,
Sure.
pension, all that. So I went and had the interview, and it's a very, a family owned company. And so the management there was, it, it, I scheduled the interview so quickly that they said, well, we already been in the interviewing process for a while and we've narrowed it down to, ever how many candidates. So if we're going to interview, you have to come today. And so
Oh
I was
wow.
like, oh my gosh, well, I don't have a babysitter. My baby's like, 10 months old, whatever. So they said, well, just bring him with you. And I was like, what?
Bring the baby to
Bring
the
the baby.
interview. That's the first.
So
Wow.
I brought him with me, and the lady that sat at the front said, the door will be open to the office where you're interviewing. You'll be able to see him. I'll be sitting right here with him. And so she babysat my baby while I
Wow.
was there, and it was just, it's always been a very, I mean, the culture at O'Neill has always been very inclusive and family oriented, but
Definitely.
also, you know, with that comes loyalty. When you're treated like family, and I never felt like I had to choose between my career and my child, which at the law offices was 100%.
Mm.
Like no, no,
Stark difference there.
stark
Yeah.
difference. And just the people in the steel industry, it's just the fabric of America, I feel like,
Yeah.
is, the people that you
Totally.
interact with daily. It
Yeah.
really is. It really is.
It is. I mean, it's all around us, right? It's in the cars we drive, the bridges we drive on, the skyscrapers we look up at. Like everything is made with steel. And yeah, it's civilization would look a lot different if there was no metals involved and no steels involved. So I think people take for granted the impact that the industry has. But yeah, that's a really fascinating story, Denise. I've talked with a lot of candidates. I've talked with a lot of interviewers and hiring managers. I've heard of the term BYOB, but I've never heard it mean bring
Bring
your
your own
own
baby.
baby. Yeah. Usually it means something else. So that's really interesting. But yeah, that's a testament to culture, right? They're willing to make accommodations, and it's worked out for you for 3 decades plus. So that's saying something. Um Obviously it started out the gate with an interview, right? And I think that probably meant a lot to you in that moment. I know the focus going into this podcast, Denise, was we wanted to talk about bringing in new talent into this industry and what it takes for this industry to attract the next generation, right? Because you were attracted in 30 years ago. You've been doing this for over 3 decades. Now you kind of understand what it's like to have been in it, been a veteran of the steel business. But the industry is changing, the new generation is changing. How do we attract people the same way that they attracted you?
Well, I feel like it's really strange. I was looking at something, uh I don't remember where I was reading it, but of all the things that the younger generation prioritizes, people think in today's society, you would think it would be money, but it's very low. It's like out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 key things that young people look for, compensation was next to last.
Wow.
So what they like is they like being able to develop and to grow and to show like that what their worth is. So um I feel like the automation, I feel like AI, social media, if you want to attract young people, you're certainly not going to put an ad in the paper. You know what I mean? Like nobody's going
Yes.
to look at the newspaper
Times
there,
have
if there
changed.
even is a newspaper. So where do you where do you seek? And I think O'Neill does a really good job because we have um, programs where they'll do internships with people from, I think maybe UAB or maybe, I'm not sure, but colleges, trade schools, different things, um, but giving them a clear path for what the future looks like. And then also allowing them to see what the future of the steel service center industry and the steel industry as a whole looks like, because I mean, it's projected to grow. I can't remember but like by 2030, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I mean, it's pretty significant growth
Yeah.
that we're expected. So with the new infrastructure, you know, um, what is it? The Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, that alone is gonna put so many more metric tons, like 200 metric tons a year into the economy, into the production of steel by 2030, I think, or something like that. So, I mean, the steel industry, like you said, steel's in everything. The steel industry is not going anywhere, but it's attracting younger people. And then when they get there, understanding that what they value is not the same as what it used to be. Because I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel like we were motivated by money. And people, it almost seems the opposite. I have a 34-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a 24-year-old, and they value their time. They don't want to be sitting at a desk 8 hours a day or locked down doing a mundane, repetitive thing all day long. They would rather make less money and have the freedom to work from home sometimes, or to also be a part of solutions, problem solving. They like to be involved. They like to show. They like to feel accomplished at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you hit a lot of good points on the head, and you're 100% right with the fact that younger people are gravitating away from compensation being the number one driver. Obviously, especially for folks in sales, it tends to be a little bit higher on the list, but it's not always number one. Every person's different. And specifically, when you look at Gen Z and even millennials to an extent, um, compensation is just one lever that you can pull to bring in new talent. And this is something that, if you're a hiring manager listening, or, director or VP, anything like that, when you're looking to bring in new talent, there's certain levers that you can pull to try to drive them in. And the more that you can pull, the better, but reasonably, you're only going to be able to pull a few. One of those levers is compensation, right? Are you giving them a healthy base salary or a healthy commission plan to incentivize them? The other levers that you can pull are that flexibility piece, right? Are you allowing work from home? If it's an outside sales position, are you managing them in a way that doesn't feel like they're being micromanaged, in a way that they feel like they have autonomy? One of the other levers that you mentioned as well, which is kind of gets overlooked, but is very important, is like impact or fulfillment, right? A lot of people, they want to feel that they have an impact on the organization that they're working for, that they're not just another number on a spreadsheet, that they're doing more beyond their job duties and their whatever their decision makings are, or whatever they're doing on a day-to-day basis, that it has a business impacts, moving forward as just outside of their job scope. So there's different things that you can pull, obviously, with certain benefits per se. Something that I'm seeing creep back is tuition reimbursement. Obviously, the high cost of college right now, that's always very attractive to somebody looking to further their education. So yeah, there are a lot of factors that you could pull. One thing you mentioned I want to expand upon a little bit too is the growth of the steel industry and the service center industry specifically over the next few years. So you mentioned the infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, potentially putting some more money into the sector. Where do you think the future of steel is going? Right, if with your 30 years experience, the way you see things now in the business day to day, what do you see the next 5, 10, 15 years looking like?
Well, for sure, cleaner. I mean,
That's good.
I mean, for sure, uh, we're in the crosshairs. I mean, steel mills in particular for reducing their carbon footprint. I mean,
Sure.
they're already doing a lot of things and they've made a lot of progress since the 1990s, but there was going to be a lot of pressure for them to continue to. So, the decarbonization of the process in itself, and then new steels. There's new steels being produced now, and companies like large companies are going to start to demand that you supply them those. And I'm trying to think of what um
Yeah, I'm curious. Can you give some examples on like what those new
oh
steels are?
gosh, I can, but let me see. What is it? It's the C2 CO2. Um, well, it escapes me now, but there is a low carbon steel, and I'm trying to think of um like mills are now producing hot briquetted, I think is what you call it, iron,
Okay.
and not using pig iron, which is very dirty. But they're also blast furnaces use a lot of natural gas now. So natural gas, you know, obviously is less destructive than burning coal.
Sure.
Steel mills are burning coal, and anything, I don't know if you've ever been in a steel mill, but everything you touch, anything you back into is black dust. So, uh, finding ways at the mill level to make steel cleaner is one way, and then service centers, finding ways to reduce the energy inside of our service centers, our plants, with better equipment, better buildings, so that you don't, when I say it's open air, I mean, a lot of people, when we build new buildings, we're building them to be climate controlled more than, a lot of our older locations.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of energy coming in
Sure.
and out of those places. Just being able to assure young people that the steel industry is going to be around for a long time, and how much change I've seen in the last 30 years, that as they're looking at, because they care about community too. Let's just say that a lot of young people are really invested in
Yes.
in the environment and in their communities, and they that's something that they've been involved in all of their lives. They've been hearing it. We didn't hear go green when I was a child, but even starting at your generation and younger generations, that's been a part of what is important to them.
Hmm.
So, continuing at every level to assure them that they can make a huge difference in an industry where the product goes into almost everything.
Sure.
If you really want to make a difference, get involved in something that's in everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of opportunities for change and for growth within the industry. One thing you mentioned, obviously, is, moving more towards a clean way of doing things, right? Both on the mill side and the service center side. One of the other pieces too is technology, right? This industry, it seems to be a little bit slower moving in terms of adapting new technology. A lot of businesses still done with a handshake. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Denise, is where do you see technology having a place here? Based on your experience on the service center side, maybe even the mill side, where could technology find a space, and how could young people possibly take advantage of that? Because there is an opportunity for sure.
Well, I mean, I know for sure, O'Neill, we just launched a new ERP system because a lot of the initiatives and a lot of the things that we've been working toward with CRM, the customer managed, programs and stuff, a lot of our inventory, we wanted something that everything could communicate together. And so, I mean, I have my cell phone on sales calls and it's real life. I mean, it's every time there's a quote or an order entered, I see it on my phone.
Nice.
So, I mean, there is a lot of technology at O'Neill, and I've never worked for another service center, so I don't know what other service centers have, but um, I mean, AI, they're using, we are actively implementing every new part of technology that comes down the pike. O'Neill's investing. So hopefully our competitors are doing the same, and our industry as a whole is continuing to grow and to find ways to use the knowledge that these kids are bringing.
Yeah.
I think it started with social media. I think that was the first slap in the face we got. It's like these kids are, walking around with all these things, and what does it do? Well, you need to be on LinkedIn. Well, you need to be on. And so then you get on there and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I do without this? Like, how
Right.
did I do my job? How was I successful before I had all this?
But you were,
So yeah. Uh-huh.
times change, and there's different tools that come about. But yeah, I mean, that's a good observation. I think social media is definitely a tool that this industry could take advantage of as well, both from a marketing perspective and from a recruitment perspective, right? Obviously, the young generation, not just even LinkedIn, but TikTok, Instagram, all the channels out there. It's important, I think, to showcase, like we talked about, the impact this industry has. Uh, if you were to join the industry, what it looks like on the inside, what the impact that you have as a contributor could be, and getting that in front of people. Because like we've talked about, a lot of the candidates that I come across, at least in this industry, have had a parent or relative that came from the industry, got them to understand what it is, and then they made their way in. Very rarely do I find people that were either recruited outside the industry or just came into it with no knowledge of steel. So I think just spreading awareness, building more knowledge in the outer communities of steel, of what you do, of the different opportunities, because there's certainly opportunities. I mean, one thing that I specifically focus on is the sales side, commercial sales roles, right? Inside sales roles, outside sales roles, all that. And there's great earning potential. There's also great flexibility. So I think those are two very motivating factors, like we talked about, for young people. And it's important to spread the word. I want to focus a little bit on the sales side too, Denise, because I know that's where you've played for a while. Uh, what would be your advice for, let's say, somebody in sales that isn't in the steel industry? Because I do get this question. If you're not in the steel industry, but you are in sales, how do you make that transition over into steel?
Well, I will say this. When came into the steel industry, like I said earlier in our conversation, it was a progression.
Yes.
You were an inside salesperson before you were an outside salesperson. You were an outside salesperson before you were in management. But probably 15 years ago was the first time I heard somebody say, we can teach you steel, but we can't teach you to sell.
Mm.
So if you love to sell and you have a drive to win, and you like, if you're self-motivated and you like to be able to measure your success, like being on commission is scary to some people, but it would feel very weird for me to be in sales and not be incentivized on commission.
Sure.
Because I decide how much money I work by how hard I work,
Sure.
not how hard somebody next to me works or somebody on another side of, Tennessee or the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So I like commission for that reason. So I would say if you like to sail, you would never get bored. Still, you can receive in a skid of sheet. And if we send you a skid of sheet and there's two heat numbers on that, you set your machine up to run that material could react differently based on the heat number, the contents of the recipe, if you will, of what's in that sheet product.
Hmm.
So you never learn it all. It's a constant seeing something new and hearing something new, like, just being in a situation where you can learn something. And then when a customer calls you and says, I was running this sheet and it was bending, perfectly, and then it started to crack or whatever. And you're like, oh, okay. So you go out there and you look and you're like, I saw that. I've seen this before. You know, this has got too much of, you know, whatever element that would make that happen, depending on if it's aluminum or hot roll or whatever. So it's not being able to say, well, you're buying a product that's not meant to do what you're doing, because a lot of people want to bend a certain type of metal to
Sure.
a degree of angle, but you can't do that because it's not made to do that. But it's
Mm.
been doing it. I've been doing it this whole skid and nothing was happening. But it's just because that happened to have you got lucky, pretty
Yeah.
much is
Yeah.
what you have to. It's literally just being able to help customers in the process, and knowing that every day that go out there, there's a good chance I'm going to learn something every day,
Sure.
even
Sure.
though I've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah. And that's what keeps it exciting, right? I think
Hmm.
that's important. All right, Denise. Well, I know we covered a lot about, bringing new talent into this industry. We talked a little bit about sales, but there are different opportunities, right? There's opportunities in operations, on the production floor, all throughout different sides of the service center and even the mills too. Where do you think there is the biggest lack of young young interest or next generation interest, and what would be your way of getting them in the door? So, for example, right, we talked about sales. Could it be sales? Do we need more people in the sales side of the industry? Do you need more on the production floor? Where do you feel like the need is strongest?
No, for sure operations,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure warehouse. And I mean, it really is just finding ways to involve the operations team and to um, give them a sense of growth, upward mobility, no matter, I don't, I feel like we struggle the most in operations,
Mm.
sales, inside, outside management. I feel like, is not so hard, but
Mhm.
I just hear a lot and everywhere I go. And that's with the fabricators that we sell to, the OEMs that we sell to.
Yeah.
It's that shop environment. It They like automated, they like computerized, and I think we're moving that way. We have computers in the warehouse now, and every person that's out in our warehouse is entering something into a computer every day, if he's loading trucks or if he's receiving materials in. So I feel like that used to be a clerical thing, and they would unload the truck and bring all the paperwork in, and somebody else would put it into the computer. And now, uh, in response to those younger people coming in and having the knowledge to run the computer, and the eagerness to do something, to use the knowledge and the skill set that they have, we put computers out in the warehouse, so now they do that. When they receive something in, actually receiving it in. So
Sure.
it's things like that. But 100% better facilities, you know cleaner cleaner air, you
Yeah.
know just better facilities.
Yeah. Super important. All right. I want to do two rapid fire questions for you. and then we'll wrap it up with your final thoughts, Denise. So, first question, for somebody listening to this that is not in steel, they think they want to break into the industry, possibly in sales, maybe another side, but let's keep it sales focused because that's your focus. What would be your advice?
Um, do it. The steel industry if you like to sell, if you're a people person, if you're organized, if you can multitask, if you like having it's almost like having your own business in the steel industry when somebody
Mhm.
gives you a territory and you start selling in that territory and you what you see through your hard work of building a pipeline or a sales funnel and having targets and developing that into a to a customer, and then once it's a customer, developing it and everything that you can do for it to grow. it, it's a very rewarding industry to be in, and
Sure.
then seeing what you sell when you're driving around, or
Mm,
when you go to Disney World and you're like, oh my gosh, that my customer did the extrusions that make the big ball that's at Epcot,
that's
or the
cool.
bridge you're driving over. Like, it's just so rewarding to your refrigerator, the stainless steel dishwasher, whatever. Uh, I would say that if you like to selling in the steel industry has been great. I've loved every minute of it. Didn't seem like work for sure.
Awesome. Love it. Same question, Denise, but for somebody who's been in the industry, just not maybe as long as you, what is your advice to see more success?
Um, I would say if you've been in the industry and you're feeling like you're not sure, you know, what the future holds, or, if you like it, or, whatever. Um, I mean, obviously I feel like I work for the best company, but um, I would say stick it out, do your research, go to MSCI events. Uh, we were talking about the new steel and the things that are going to change, and all the things that have changed since I started 30 years ago.
Sure.
Being in an industry and knowing that it's going to be around for a long, long time is good. So whatever you're looking at that might be making you think of making a change out of the industry, I feel like the steel industry is just going to be here forever, and there's going to be a lot of really great things like, you know, renewable energy, anything that comes down the pipeline that you know money's being poured into. It's going to be our industry. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally correct. Okay, Denise. Well, I appreciate all your insights, all your advice. I think it's super valuable for not only people that are in the industry, maybe just not as long as you, they could hear your knowledge and your wisdom, but also for those that maybe aren't in the industry. Now you know this is not going anywhere. Denise has
nope.
been in it for 30 years and says it's just getting started. So, well, come on in. Uh, you know, the industry's warm. So jump on in
Yeah.
if you need be. Um, well, Denise, appreciate the time. I want to give you the floor for final thoughts. Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners? Anything we didn't cover that you want to touch on?
Well, first of all, I love following you on LinkedIn. You always have such positive outlook
Thank you.
and good response to the things that you put out there. So I appreciate you inviting me on, and there and again say I have not felt like I worked for the last 30 years. I've loved my job. I love this industry. It really does feel like you're connected to the fabric of what makes America great. Hardworking people that are out there, true essential people, making a product that is essential and changes lives for the better every day. Feels good. So young people, I feel like we're seeing what your strengths are, and we're trying desperately at every level to implement those into the industry. So I feel like you said, I feel like it's just going to continue to grow, and we're going to find ways to, and we have in the last 10 years brought in a lot of young people that, are making a difference in what we do every day. So it's been good.
That's great. That's great. And Denise, where could folks connect with you if need be?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Mm, that's probably X. I'm on X too. So
Okay. Well, we'll include your LinkedIn profile link in the show notes for anyone who wants to connect with Denise, potentially follow her or anything. We'll have that in the show notes. But pleasure speaking with you, Denise. Really appreciated the conversation. I think everybody listening has a lot to learn. And till next time.
Thanks for listening to the Recruiter of Steel podcast. If you enjoyed our finished product, please subscribe and leave a rating. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.